With the global health crisis, financial support is increasingly difficult to secure. It's important now more than ever that individuals step up to help support the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Consider making a donation now by visiting www.chicagolgbthalloffame.org and clicking on Donations.
As Governor of Illinois, I'm proud to welcome everyone joining us virtually for the 2020 Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame induction ceremony. The COVID-19 pandemic has made us all make sacrifices and accommodations to our everyday lives. And while we may be living in an unusual time, I cannot begin to express just how proud I am to celebrate fellow Illinoisans who have risen to this occasion and done their part to continue building Illinois into the great inclusive state that our residents deserve. Today's event serves as a wonderful opportunity to honor outstanding Chicagoans for their accomplishments. The gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender community has made incredible contributions to the growth and well-being of this city and this state, and they deserve our respect and commendations for all that they've done. Those we celebrate tonight are individuals, organizations, and friends of the LGBT community who have enriched our lives and have helped to build a stronger, more resilient, more diverse, and inclusive society. As your governor, I'm honored to be part of this event, and I know that each of you has worked hard for the success that you enjoy today. I applaud your constant diligence and dedication. I'm pleased to join with your family, your friends, your colleagues, and community in celebrating you on this occasion. I offer you my best wishes and thanks, and hope that you can enjoy this once-in-a-lifetime event. Know that Chicago and Illinois stand behind you and are proud of you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
And I'm First Lady Amy Eshelman.
We're pleased to welcome everyone to the 2020 Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame induction ceremony. During this unparalleled health crisis, we've all had to make sacrifices and accommodations in every aspect of our lives. However, despite these challenges, our residents have risen to the occasion and done their part to continue making Chicago the great city that it is.
Tonight we have the honor of recognizing some of these residents, individuals, organizers, and friends of the LGBT community that have helped to build more resilient communities and a stronger, more diverse, and inclusive Chicago. Today's event serves as a wonderful opportunity to honor these outstanding, accomplished Chicagoans for making incredible contributions to the growth and well-being of our city.
As both leaders of Chicago and members of the LGBT community, we are honored to recognize each individual business and organization being inducted into this year's Hall of Fame. Each of you have worked hard for your tremendous success, and we applaud your constant diligence and dedication.
We are pleased to join your family, friends, colleagues, and community in honoring you on this special occasion, and we hope you'll enjoy this once-in-a-lifetime event.
We want you to know that we are proud of you. Your communities are proud of you, and all of Chicago is proud of you. Thank you, congratulations, and please continue to be safe.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Chicago Commission on Human Relations, our staff, and our board, I'd like to offer my congratulations to this year's inductees into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. This is indeed quite an honor. You join a veritable who's who of individuals and organizations who have given selflessly of themselves to make a difference in the lives of thousands of Chicago's LGBT residents. Each member of the Hall of Fame, in their own way, has left their personal mark of hope, success, triumph, and courage on our city that it would do well for all of us to emulate. Our city owes a great deal of gratitude to each of them and to you as well. During my tenure with the Commission, I have been fortunate enough to have had some measure of involvement with the Hall of Fame now for many, many years. Sometimes that just meant staying out of the way and letting the committee do their thing. But through the years, I was introduced to dozens of remarkable people doing extraordinary work all across the city, some on a large scale and some on a small scale. But each one made an impact which cannot be overstated. Among the members of the Hall of Fame, I count many as friends and colleagues who helped me to grow as a person and as an advocate for human and civil rights. Their personal stories helped turn me from a young lawyer whose limited vision was to fight for Black equality to a civil and human rights professional who fights for everyone. They helped me see how discrimination hurts us all, how hate devastates, and how being a victim without recourse can make you feel helpless and isolated. They helped me to not accept difference, but embrace it. They helped me to understand that tolerance without respect is useless, and diversity without equity and inclusion doesn't make a difference. I'm still a work in progress, but in having the experiences I've had with members of the LGBT Hall of Fame, I have grown and I have been blessed. So keep telling your story. You don't know how much of an influence you can make on someone's life, even if it's one person like me. So please keep doing what you're doing. The community needs you and our city needs you. Stay strong, stay vigilant, stay healthy, and stay true to your beliefs. We thank you, we applaud you, and we welcome you to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Hello, I'm Dean Richards, the entertainment critic on the WGN TV Morning News here in Chicago. And welcome to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame induction ceremony. As with so many other events this year, we too are going virtual. The Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame is both a historic exhibit and an event. Through the Hall of Fame, residents of Chicago and the world are made aware of the contributions of Chicago's LGBT community and the community's efforts to eradicate homophobic bias and discrimination. The support of the City of Chicago and its Commission on Human Relations Advisory Council on Gay and Lesbian Issues, later the Advisory Council on Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Issues, established the Chicago Gay Lesbian Hall of Fame. The inaugural induction ceremony took place during Pride Week at City Hall, hosted by Mayor Richard M. Daley. It was the first event of its kind in the country. Since its inception in 1991, its mission has continued to expand. In addition to the selection of each year's new inductees, a large portion of the Hall of Fame's time is devoted to being the custodian of records for exemplary inductees that it's honored. When the Advisory Council was eliminated as part of the city's budget reduction, the Friends of the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame was established with the support of the City of Chicago. The name change was made to encompass the inclusivity of all of the individuals who combine to make up our diverse community. The Chicago LGBT continues the work of recognizing outstanding contributions of these individuals, businesses, organizations, and allies. To be inducted to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame, an inductee must have made either a single far-reaching contribution or significant long-term contributions to the quality of life of Chicago's LGBT community or the city of Chicago at large. The selection of inductees for the Hall of Fame is chosen from a slate of nominations from the public. A selection committee comprised of former recipients of the award in the individual category then selects the inductees. Friends of the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame is now responsible, in cooperation with the City of Chicago, for all Hall of Fame operations. The main goal of the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame is to ensure that the achievements of our community leaders are not lost or forgotten. The Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame is pleased to announce the 2020 inductees. The bios that follow have been edited to run in the time allotted. For a full listing, go to ChicagoLGBTHallOfFame.org.
John Ademola Adewoye. As a priest in Nigeria, John Ademola Adewoye came to America to attempt conversion therapy, but the accepting environment in America led him to greater self-acceptance. That led to his decision to come out and leave the priesthood and help other LGBT individuals struggling with self-acceptance. After his arrival in America, anti-LGBT laws in Nigeria made it impossible for him to return home and led him to offer asylum to LGBT people from less welcoming environments around the world. Since 2006, he has offered a pathway to LGBT people by providing housing and connections with services to help them in the process of seeking asylum and helping them navigate their new world. To aid in that endeavor, he founded the Center of Integration and Courageous Living in 2013 and the Chicago LGBTI Asylum Support Program in 2015 in cooperation with Broadway United Methodist Church. He has personally housed asylum seekers and found placement for others, building a network of mutual support. Adewoye is also a member and board member of Chicago Gay Men's Chorus. For his work in helping displaced members of our community find a home, we are pleased to welcome John Ademola Adewoye to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Caprice Carthens. Caprice Carthens came out to her mother at age 11. With her mother's support, she transitioned and started her advocacy within her family circle. Caprice has volunteered for many community agencies, including AIDS Foundation of Chicago, Chicago House, and Heartland Alliance. She is employed at Southside Help Center and has received awards as 2017 National Transgender Testing Day Advocate, 2018 Betty Smith Awards, 2019 Trans Day of Remembrance Leader, and the Chicago Department of Public Health HIV Trailblazer. She was featured in Curvers Verlag's 2018 book, To Survive on This Shore. For her advocacy work, we're proud to welcome Caprice Carthens to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Dr. Raymond Crossman. Dr. Raymond Crossman is the president of Adler University and the longest-serving LGBTQ university president in North America. During Dr. Crossman's tenure, Adler University has prioritized inclusive practices and increased LGBT representation in the university's board, faculty, staff, and student body. Dr. Crossman helped pave the way for LGBT students in higher education. He co-founded LGBTQ Presidents in Higher Education in 2010 and co-chaired the organization until 2018. In 2015, he brought the first national conference for LGBT leaders in higher education to Chicago. In 2017, Dr. Crossman became the first university president to publicly disclose his HIV status, and he has used his personal story to advocate for marginalized communities. With his leadership, Adler University has taken a stand on issues such as human rights, undocumented students, and climate change. Through board service, he brings a queer perspective to Chicago not-for-profit organizations, as well as leadership for the LGBT Fund for the Chicago Community Trust, Center on Halsted, and Out at CHM, a committee of the Chicago History Museum. For all of his work in these areas, we are proud to welcome Dr. Raymond Crossman to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
J. Paul Duratani. J. Paul Duratani went to law school at the Paul University College of Law and began his work with the Legal Aid Foundation of Chicago, helping those in poverty fight against slumlords. He eventually started his own law practice, the Duratani Firm. During that time, he volunteered for the AIDS Legal Society and Neon Street, a shelter for homeless LGBT youth. He's received the Eckroth Award from Community Support Services for his legal work fighting for people with disabilities, received the 2015 Spirit Award from Chicago House for his work helping to establish the Trans Life Center, received the Chicago House Award for work on behalf of families with HIV and AIDS. In addition to a successful law career, Jay is a writer, actor, and playwright. He brings issues to light through the writing and producing of plays, musicals, and films, including the GLAAD-nominated play Haram Iran, the Jeff Award-winning musical The Civility of Albert Cashier, and the multi-award-winning movie Foster Boy, co-produced with basketball legend Shaquille O'Neal. For his many endeavors seeking to help people make a better life, we're happy to welcome J. Paul Duratani to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Ronald J. Eman. Ron Eman, a man of many facets, has been active in Chicago's LGBT community for 40 years. As a law student in Chicago in the early 1970s, he volunteered at the Barbara Beckman House, a forerunner to Horizons Community Services and the Center on Halsted. He worked for the What's Going On in Chicago daily phone recording and eventually as the associate editor of Gay Chicago magazine. In 1978, Ron became Chicago's first openly gay attorney, representing many of the city's bars and organizations. He was among the founders of the Organization to Promote Equality Now, or OPEN, Illinois' first gay and lesbian political action party. He successfully lobbied then-Governor James Thompson for an anti-discrimination directive to the Illinois Department of Personnel. He lobbied for and submitted written testimony in favor of an Illinois House bill amending the state's Ethnic Intimidation Act to include gays and lesbians. In 1982, Ron joined the staff of Gay Life newspaper as a legal columnist and advisor. There he met his life partner of 35 years, Chuck Renslow, with whom he co-founded the Greater Chicago Gay and Lesbian Democrats. Mr. Eman was the first person to address the Police Training Academy and police roll calls on sensitivity training on LGBT citizens. In 1983, Eman was featured in Newsweek magazine for an article on the gay community, politics, and the impact of AIDS. For his long-time service to the city of Chicago and our community, we are pleased to welcome Ron Eman to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Denise Foy. Denise Foy has a long history of service to Chicago's LGBT community, beginning in 1993 when she served on the board of Horizons Community Services, which continued through 2007. During that time, Denise was very involved in helping the agency remain viable, as well as being part of the team to realize the dream of a Chicago LGBT community center. During her tenure with Horizons, which would eventually become the Center on Halsted, Denise co-chaired 2 gala fundraisers and served on the Capital Campaign Committee, helping to raise $30 million, and she also chaired the search committee. Denise was also a founding member of the LGBT Community Fund at the Chicago Community Trust. The work of the LGBT Community Fund continues today with nearly $2 million awarded to more than 35 agencies. Thousands of citizens have been impacted and touched by the organizations that have received this grant. In 2019, Denise was appointed to the National Board of SAGE Advocacy and Services for LGBT Elders. Currently, she is the executive sponsor for the first Pride Employee Resource Group at the American Medical Association. She actively supports the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center's LGBT programming efforts. It is for these reasons that we're proud to induct Denise Foy into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Delilah Breedy. For the past 20 years, Delilah Freedy has worked tirelessly to advance the rights of LGBTQ people in Chicago. Growing up in Algeria, her maternal grandmother instilled in her the ideals of equality and social justice rooted in her Muslim faith. From this foundation, Delilah has anchored herself in the fight to ensure that all people are able to exercise their rights. Delilah immigrated to the U.S. at the age of 19 and in October of 2013 became a naturalized citizen. She has served as a grassroots organizer supporting marriage equality and political candidates who fight for equal rights for the LGBT community. In 2011, Delilah became board chair of the Equality Illinois Education Project. While at Equality Illinois, she became a defining voice for the fight for marriage equality. Delilah has the unique ability to bring diverse groups together in the spirit of a common cause, and has most notably demonstrated this in her advocacy work. She has also been an advocate for LGBT rights among Chicago's Muslim community. After the Pulse nightclub massacre, she was one of the first activists in the community to aid in healing by helping to bring together Muslim and LGBTQ leaders. It is through her faith that she advocates for the understanding of intersectionality between Islam and LGBT rights. For these efforts, we are pleased to induct Delilah Freedy into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Terry Gaskins. For nearly 20 years, Terry Lynn Gaskins supported Chicago's LGBT community through her services as a photographer and a humanitarian. She's probably best known as a staff photographer for Gay Chicago magazine, but she's also donated her time and talents to benefit such organizations as the Lesbian Community Cancer Project, Women Who Love Women calendar, Friends of the Arts, The Children's Place, Test Positive Aware Network, the Hearts Foundation, Team Chicago, Chicago Canine Rescue, and Pets Are Wonderful Support. Her photography has been featured in Metra, The Advocate, Los Angeles Girl Guide, Circuit Noise, Scoop, Pride, Time Out Chicago, and the Chicago Tribune. She's documented the plight of the homeless through an art show at Looking Glass Theater. She has operated her own gallery, and she organized art shows featuring the works of others. The Friends of the Arts and the Illinois Gay Rodeo Association have honored her for her work and her contributions, and she was named Business of the Year by the Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. For her many years of service to the Chicago community, we're proud to welcome Terry Gaskins to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Joel Drake Johnson. Joel Drake Johnson was an award-winning, internationally produced Chicago playwright and teacher. His local writing impacted audiences in Chicago as well as coast to coast and beyond U.S. borders. Joel's art made communities aware of homophobia, bias, and discrimination. He was nominated for a Joseph Jefferson Award 5 times, received an Emmy nomination for his teleplay A Moment of Rage, and was the recipient of the Chicago Dramatist Marquis Award for his overall playwriting career. His most commercially successful work is likely Rashida Speaking, which opened at Chicago's Rivendell Theater and then moved off Broadway, where it was nominated for an Outer Critics Circle Award for Best New Work. He was a playwright with bursts of passion and constant insight into the human condition, especially the loneliness and self-doubt that can overtake us later in life. As a man, a teacher, and an artist, he helped all of us to have a more enlightened understanding of the world. In honor of his contributions, we are pleased to welcome Joel Drake Johnson to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Stephen Kulicki. As a Chicago journalist in the 1970s and 80s, communications media professional and activist Stephen Kulicki broke barriers while covering and advancing the struggle for civil rights for Chicago's LGBT community. A Chicago native, Kulicki did groundbreaking work as a reporter and editor at Chicago's Gay Life weekly newspaper from 1977 through 1982. Kulicki also led sensitivity training on LGBT issues for Chicago's police force. In 1978, a time when the city government and police ignored anti-gay violence, Gay Life publisher Grant Ford, a 2011 Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame inductee, and Kulicki, then a Gay Life reporter, organized whistle-stop street patrols in Chicago's LGBT neighborhoods. The paper urged victims of anti-gay crime to file police reports. Kulicki's incisive articles on the attacks and perpetrators' subsequent trials and convictions became a mainstay of Gay Life's news coverage. His investigative reporting led to the arrest and conviction of a criminal who had victimized gay men in Chicago, San Francisco, and New York City. In the 1980s, Kulicki became the nation's first ever municipal press corps reporter representing an LGBT paper. His 1982 Gay Life interview with Chicago's then Mayor Jane Byrne resulted in her issuing an executive order banning anti-gay discrimination in city jobs, housing, and services. He journeyed to a U.S. Army detention center to report on gay Cuban refugees. He also traveled to Springfield, Illinois, and Madison, Wisconsin to cover campaigns to pass statewide LGBT civil rights legislation. He also co-hosted an LGBT public affairs radio program on station WFYR-FM. A 1982 cover story by Kulicki in the national LGBT news magazine The Advocate spotlighted Chicago's rich LGBT history and prominence as a national LGBT culture and political capital. That year, he was named The Advocate's news editor and relocated to California, where he oversaw the magazine's coverage of the growing AIDS crisis. For his significant contributions to life in Chicago, we're proud to welcome Stephen Kulicki to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Matt Stuzinski. Among Matt Stuzinski's most notable achievements is the founding of the Chicago chapter of GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, in 1994. As a high school teacher for nearly 40 years, he has been instrumental in LGBT visibility in his school and in the wider educational community. As a new teacher, Matt put his career at risk by establishing and leading the local GLSEN chapter. As the founder, Matt made it a point to give equal voice to both women and men within the group. Matt's persistent vision promoted group cohesion and made Chicago one of the most successful GLSEN chapters in the nation. The chapter donated innumerable amounts of LGBT educational materials to Chicago area schools, as well as spearheaded protections and inclusive language in the Chicago Teachers Union and Chicago Public School governance. Matt also served on the GLSEN National Board. Matt has been a longtime member and supporter of Gerberhardt Library, Crossroads Fund, Equality Illinois, and the Illinois Safe Schools Alliance. In addition, he volunteered and has participated in the Gay Games since 2006. He has also been active in promoting LGBT inclusion as a leader and instructor in the local and national sailing community. He has served as a co-head of his school's Gay Straight Alliance, and Matt has been an out and proud teacher at his school. For his leadership and courage, we are proud to welcome Matt Stuzinski to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Michelle Zacarias. Michelle is a queer disabled Latina organizer from the west side of Chicago. For over a decade, she's facilitated social justice, anti-oppression, and LGBT movement work. Michelle was one of 4 founding members of the Trans Liberation Collective, a coalition that formed after the anti-transgender bathroom bills swept the nation in 2017. Alongside other activists, Michelle was able to organize the largest trans-led march in Chicago, leading more than 1,000 marchers to occupy the streets of downtown. Later that same year, Michelle helped orchestrate the execution of the Chicago Pride Parade shutdown. For the last 5 years, Michelle has also been a prevalent voice in LGBT media. She has covered a range of important issues, from the epidemic of violence plaguing trans communities to highlighting discriminatory employment laws against LGBT individuals. In 2018, Michelle was awarded the Saul Miller Excellence in Journalism Award for her contributions to the field. Michelle continues to positively impact queer communities in her role as a board member of the Brace Space Alliance, a Black and brown trans-run nonprofit on Chicago's South Side, and through her disability-centered community care workshops. For her outstanding work, we're thrilled to welcome Michelle Zacarias to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Of course, it's not just individual contributions and achievements that help build our community. It's also the contributions of businesses and organizations. This year, we honor 3 worthy businesses and organizations.
The Legacy Project. The award-winning Legacy Project is a Chicago-based cultural and educational nonprofit dedicated to researching and promoting the contributions LGBT people have made to world history and culture. It is driven by a core of historians, biographers, educators, youth advocates, social activists, and community and business leaders who share a commitment to ending the omission of LGBT contributions from shared human history. The Legacy Project consists of multiple elements designed to raise awareness of an aspect of history most people do not know is missing. The Legacy Walk is the only outdoor LGBT museum walk in the world. It spans 1/2 mile of North Halsted Street and highlights the contributions of LGBT people throughout history. The Legacy Walk was declared an historic landmark in 2019. The Legacy Project Education Initiative is a growing body of professional teaching tools that use the biographies of Legacy Project nominees to inspire young people who have been forced to grow up without the benefit of historically significant LGBT role models. The Legacy Wall is a 24-foot-long, digitally interactive traveling installation that celebrates the contributions of LGBT people to world history and culture. It has visited 36 sites nationwide since its launch in 2015. In all the world, there is nothing quite like Chicago's Legacy Project, and we are proud to induct it into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Accepting the award is founder and director Victor Salvo.
Windy City Times. Since its inception in 1985 under then-publisher Jeff McCourt, through the current incarnation with co-founder and owner Tracy Bain and publisher Terry Klinsky, Windy City Times has functioned as Chicago's premier news source for the LGBT community. Windy City Times co-founder Bob Bearden died in 1987, and co-founder Drew Badanish left the company early on. For more than 35 years, Windy City Times has presented a weekly reflection of life in Chicago's LGBT community, a printed product that has allowed the path of the gay rights movement and adapted to a changing media landscape. I think what has sustained us is that our motivation has always been about the community, Then publisher Tracy Bain said in an interview with the Chicago Tribune, "Whether it's a protest or a gala, we show people what happened this week in the gay community." Windy City Times is a member of the National LGBT Newspaper Guild and has received numerous honors for its work, both from journalism organizations and from the LGBT community. Windy City Times has been recognized and awarded from a vast array of LGBT organizations. It is with great joy that we welcome Windy City Times to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Accepting the award are owner and co-founder Tracy Bain and publisher Terry Klinsky.
Women and Children First Bookstore. As the feminist movement has evolved, so has Women and Children First Bookstore. Its events and programming, as well as hiring practices, reflect trans-inclusive intersectional politics. In 2014, the co-founders sold the bookstore to two of their staffers, Lynn Mooney and Sarah Hollenbeck, which kept the store in the family and renewed the strength and vitality of its mission. It strives to offer a place where everyone can find books reflecting their lives and interest in an atmosphere in which they are respected and valued. Women and Children First was opened in a modest storefront in 1979 by Ann Christofferson and Linda Buban. They moved to its current location in Andersonville in 1990, having outgrown two previous smaller locations, and soon became an important hub of Chicago's active and vigorous lesbian community. Since the beginning, the bookstore's events and programming have showcased and championed events for LGBT-identified authors, both established and emerging. For 10 years, it has hosted Sappho Salon, an open mic for women and non-binary writers, comedians, musicians, and other performing artists. It has also hosted an annual Pride reading featuring LGBT writers and supporters of the community. We welcome Women and Children First Bookstore to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Accepting the awards are the store's co-founders, Ann Christofferson and Linda Buban, and current owners, Lynn Mooney and Sarah Hollenbeck.
As Bette Midler famously sang, "You got to have friends." The LGBT community is no different, and we honor those allies who have fought for us and alongside of us with the Friend of the Community Award. This year, we're proud to welcome two such individuals and one organization to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Judy Bartopinka. Judy Bartopinka was there for the LGBT community since the beginning stages of the movement. She supported the LGBT causes when it was politically risky for anyone, Democrat or Republican, to be associated with the movement. The fact that she did so as a Republican showed an incredible amount of political courage. Judy Bartopinka was not only supportive in her words, she was supportive in her actions. She supported the Illinois Marriage Equality Bill, and during the November 20th, 2013 ceremony at the University of Illinois at Chicago, when the state's marriage equality bill was signed into law, Judy Bartopinka was the only Republican speaker at the event. Still, another example was her perennial attendance at Chicago's Pride Parade and Equality Illinois annual galas. Topinka served in the Illinois House of Representatives from 1981 to 1985 and in the Illinois Senate from 1985 to 1995. She was elected to 3 terms as Illinois State Treasurer, serving from 1995 to 2007. She was the first woman to become state treasurer, the first to be elected to 3 consecutive terms. In 2002, she was elected chair of the Illinois Republican Party, holding that office until 2005. She was also the first Republican woman to be nominated for governor of Illinois. Judy Bartopinka was a consistent and firm supporter of gay rights. Even when attacked by members of her own party for her gay rights support, she never wavered. She was truly a friend of the LGBT community, and we're happy to welcome her into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Accepting the award on her behalf is her son, Joseph Bartopinka.
Brunetta Howell Barrett. Brunetta Howell Barrett is an institution on Chicago's West Side. Starting in the 1960s with her work in the fight for civic and economic rights and her work with such organizations as the Committee to Defend the Bill of Rights and her work on the Chicago Commission on Human Services under Chicago Mayors Harold Washington and Eugene Sawyer. Her commitment to justice compelled her to address homophobia and lack of access to resources by founding the Pathfinders Prevention Education Fund, an HIV and AIDS service organization. The organization was notable for its inclusion of the LGBT community in its mission statement, one of the few Westside organizations to do so. Barrett has long stood up to homophobia in her holistic approach to addressing issues that impact the West Side. She has worked with public officials and faith-based community groups to bring greater awareness and resources in the fight against HIV and AIDS, helping reduce the stigma and fostering greater acceptance. A skilled and knowledgeable presenter, she has testified at numerous hearings on HIV and AIDS and served as a member of Third Unitarian Church, Walgreens Community Advisory Task Force, and the Westside HIV and AIDS Regional Planning Council, among many other community connections. Barrett's commitment to fighting homophobia continues as she enters her 87th year. She has been a longtime ally of the LGBT community, and for her work to address HIV and AIDS and advocacy on behalf of the community, we are proud to welcome Brunetta Howell Barrett to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
The National Museum of Mexican Art. Ever since the National Museum of Mexican Art opened its doors in 1987, inclusivity has been part of its mission statement, and recognition of the LGBT community is a strong component of that mission. Too often, LGBT people of color have been forced to choose between their race or heritage and their queer identity. The National Museum of Mexican Art has made it possible for Mexicans, Mexican Americans, and Latinos to embrace and celebrate their full identity. The National Museum of Mexican Art's policy of inclusivity has been made without announcement or fanfare, just a policy of acceptance. Among some of the numerous events and displays that highlight this inclusion are the Sor Juana Festival, founded in 1996 and named after a lesbian scholar and poet, Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz, hosting the Llegó Encuentro, a national Latinx LGBT conference in 1998, hosting Homofrecuencia, the first Spanish-language LGBT radio show in U.S. history in 2002, hosting a reception for the Gay Games in 2006, co-sponsoring La Pretty Woman, a play about a Mexican transgender woman in 2018, and since 2003, hosting the annual Queer Prom, serving between 150 and 200 youth annually. The programming of the National Museum of Mexican Art has always intentionally included LGBT artists and performers, programming, and displays. Carlos Tortolero, president and founder, has stated that the LGBT community is like a relative of a family that deserves a place at the table. Such a history of inclusion is what makes the National Museum of Mexican Art a true friend of the community, and we're happy to welcome them to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
This year's inductees join a diverse and impressive list of individuals, businesses, and organizations, all of which have contributed to the lives of Chicagoans and its equally diverse LGBT community. As the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame enters its 30th year, please join me as we honor past inductees of the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame.
Friends of the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame se enorgullecen exaltar a los siguientes individuos, organizaciones y amigos de la comunidad al Salón de Fama LGBT de Chicago. Ellos son, bajo la categoría de individuo, John Ademola Adewoye, Caprice Carthens, Raymond Crossman, J. Paul Duratani, Ronald J. Eman, Denise Foy, Dalila Freedy, Terry Gaskins, Joel Drake Johnson, Stephen Kulicki, Matt Stasinski, Michelle Zacarias. Y bajo la categoría de organizaciones tenemos el placer de exaltar a The Legacy Project, Windy City Times, Women and Children First. Y finalmente, bajo la categoría de amigos de la comunidad LGBT, es un orgullo para nosotros exaltar a Judy Bart Topinka, Bernetta Howell Barrett, the National Museum of Mexican Art o el Museo Nacional de Arte Mexicano. Estos son los nuevos miembros del Salón de Fama LGBT de Chicago 2020.
Well, thank you for joining us. For more information, please use the contact information below. And remember to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Congratulations to all of the inductees to the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Thank you very much for your contributions. I'm Dean Richards from WGN. Stay safe and have a great day.